Hey guys, it's May 21st and today I wanted to take you all on a garden tour. I like to do these for my own records and also for your all's curiosity to see how things are growing, what do we have growing. If you buy at my farm stand, maybe you're curious as to what I might have available at the farm stand later on. So I wanted to show you the garden as everything stands right now. But first, there's some videos that I've taken throughout the last 2 weeks, and I just wanted to get you caught up on some of those. So let's watch those, and then we'll come back for the garden tour. Today we're back over here to lay out and plant our melon garden / cucumbers and pumpkins and all of that. So that's what we're going to work on. It's a big space, but I already feel like it's going to be too small for all the things I want to plant. But we'll see how it goes. Okay, so tomorrow I'm gonna go do my first farmer's market, and I wanted to practice setting up and make sure that I knew how to set up my tent since I had never set it up before, and make sure I have everything that I need ready to go, my signage, my tables, my weights for the tent, because in Nebraska it can be really windy and that scares me a little bit. So when I was younger, my dad worked fairs and we sold jewelry that we made. We also had a pet monkey and we took pictures of people with the monkey. And so as a little girl, probably around ages 10, 11, 12, around that age, I worked fairs with my dad. So this is not something brand new to me, but definitely something I haven't done as an adult. So it's a little different than fairs. Working county fairs, but it's a farmer's market, so something similar, and I feel pleased with how it looks. Honestly, my booth looks a little bit empty, but throw some chairs and my kiddos in there and we'll fill it up pretty good. So hopefully the farmer's market goes well for us. All we have to sell is salad greens, mostly lettuce, some Swiss chard, some kale, probably not any spinach tomorrow. But it'll get us started, it'll give us some experience, and as we get more produce, we'll have more things to bring. It's Saturday, May 20th, and we are going to do some transplanting today. So these are watermelon, cantaloupe, cucumbers, and squash, and most of them are a lot bigger than I wanted them to be when I transplanted them out, but it's been cold, and a lot of these plants like the warmth. So I don't know how they're gonna do, but I'm at least gonna try getting them in the ground. I'm sure the squash over here on this side are root bound because they're in the small trays. The other ones have a little bit more space, so they might fare a little better. And then I have some more strawberries. We've been planting strawberries the last couple of days. I'm gonna give a farm tour tomorrow, and I will explain what has happened with my strawberries. But this is my backup plan, so we have a lot more day neutral strawberries to get in the ground. You'll notice that where I'm going to plant the squash, we still have yet to get it completely mulched. We did get one side of it done. There's been so much to do, and getting plants in the ground has been my #1 priority, and we will get this mulched hopefully soon, but we've got to get the plants in the ground first. Okay, those clips there don't even begin to show the amount of work that we've been doing on the garden. I have to apologize before we get started on the garden that the weeds have been low on the priority list. My number one goal the last couple of weeks have been getting everything in the ground and everything able to grow. So that's what we've been focusing on, and as we finally get everything in the ground, then we can take some time to pull those weeds and get ahead of things. So let's go see what we have growing in the garden. Okay, this year, this is what I'm calling my pea garden. So as we look around this garden, you can see that we have a lot of peas. Okay, so this garden is fenced in because the rabbits love these peas. And so we fenced it last year because they were eating off every last pea that I had planted. And that just worked really well this year. Okay, so in between my rows of peas, I had these holes that had tomatoes in them last year. And I don't want to just leave them empty because nothing but weeds will grow in them. So I have planted marigolds and romaine lettuce. And there are two different types of romaine lettuce that I have planted. There's a green kind and a red kind. And I just think they're so pretty and they're growing really well. This garden looks kind of dry as I'm out here, so I'll have to work on that. I just think they look so pretty. And then I have three different varieties of peas in the garden. And these, with all the crazy tendrils, I believe are the sugar snap peas. I have some rows labeled and some not labeled. These plants look obviously different than all the rest, and these are the sugar snaps, and that's where you can eat both the peas inside and the pods. Over here on this side of the garden we have either the snow peas or the shelling peas, so they don't have all the crazy tendrils, and when they do put on pods it will be easy to tell if they're snow peas or shelling peas. Snow peas are the ones where they don't develop much of a pea inside, and so you just eat the whole thing. They're really good in stir fries. And then the shelling peas are ones where you let them mature quite a ways, and then you shell them out and eat them, just the little seeds inside the pods and not the whole pods. As you can see, these are blooming. I honestly think these are the shelling peas because I don't think any of my snow peas have bloomed yet, and they will be ready very quickly after they bloom. Now this row right here, this one is snow peas. I have this one labeled, and they have not bloomed yet. So I believe it is just my shelling peas that have bloomed so far, and a few of the sugar snaps. And once these snow peas bloom, then we'll have peas ready to sell at the stand very soon. If you notice, I have my stakes in different types of stakes depending on what I had available, but I haven't yet tied my string, so that is something that I must do very soon. That one there with the strings and the fencing were there from last year, so those are ready to already grow without falling over, but I'm gonna have to get to work on these other ones very soon. Okay, on this side of the garden, last year we had peppers here, and so this year I am turning it into a little squash patch. Sorry if that wind is a little stronger than I expected it to be. And so I have my zucchini in this row here, and you can see they look pretty healthy. So these are all green zucchini, your traditional normal or black zucchini that you would expect zucchini to look like. Then I have patty pan squash in this row, and in amongst the weeds you can see patty pan squash. I have two different varieties of patty pan squash. Now I've never tried them, but I had people looking for different varieties of squash last year at my farm stand, and I had only grown the green zucchini and the yellow zucchini squash, and so I decided I'd try some different squash this year. And then I have some more romaine lettuce thrown in here, and then I have one more row of squash, and here we have a desi squash, which is kind of an oval looking squash, just something else I thought to try. And then we have a crookneck squash down there that is a summer squash. So these are all summer squash here. So that is our pea garden. Here is my peach tree that bloomed early and then promptly we got down to 24 degrees, and we did try coating it with ice because the internet said that might help, but nothing helped. There is no peaches on this tree. So that is normal for here in Nebraska. We oftentimes lose our peach crop, and it is disappointing, but it's just the way it goes. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out a better way to save it, and this tree's too big to cover. Now the apples, on the other hand, bloom a lot later, and I think we might have a pollination issue because we don't get a lot of apples developing for all the blooms that happen on this tree. But we do have apples on there, so I'm looking here to find a little baby apple to show you. They're so hard to see until they get bigger, but they are definitely on here. So I will find one and then show it to you. Okay, can you spot the baby apple right there? So it's right here. So that bud was swelling up, and that will become an apple. And there's more on this tree than it looks like whenever you first glance at it. Here we have our raspberry beds, and we've had them here for several years. On that side is a yellow raspberry. They're very fragile, so you don't find them in the grocery store because they're not good for packaging and transporting. And that side is the traditional red raspberry. However, something is going wrong with these raspberry patches. One of the problems that we have is bindweed, and the bindweed has gotten in there. And last year we were so diligent to try to keep up with it, and it didn't matter. It still claimed a good chunk of our raspberries, and it chokes out the canes on the raspberries. But then the strange thing is, this bed of raspberries, there's not that many plants in there, and we're really not sure what's happening. We water them, we fertilize them, we weed them, and our patch is just dying out. So we have started another one this year on our other property. These look much healthier, but once again, that bindweed, it's so hard. This bed has been many different things. We've had strawberries in here, we've had potatoes in here, pumpkins, wheat, and now it's just bindweed. That's pretty much all that's in there. I did have okra in here one year. That is bindweed, and so we are not even planting this. We're planning to tarp it, even though we've discovered that tarping doesn't even stop the bindweed. So if you have any magic solutions for bindweed, let us know. But for this year, we didn't even try to fight this battle in this bed. Okay, now we're going to walk down my 4 raised beds here along our fence line, and this is spring onions, and then I have thrown some flowers in here at the end. We have alyssum and chamomile are the flowers I planted here, and then we have our spring onions, and then I have some of my dry beans, so these will go up and over the trellis. And in this one I have more dry beans. Then I have my celery, and I definitely need to turn the irrigation on these. They dry out so easy. More dry beans to trellis. This one I have my dry beans. I have my basil, which looks pretty poor. I think it's going to come out of it, but it did not like the transplant. I've got some parsley. I've got some beets and more dry beans. And then some of our crazy weeds. I need to get the weed eater up and going. And then this was my overwintered spinach, which most of it has bolted or is really close to bolting. So I'm actually going to save seeds from it. And then I have planted, we have dry beans here on the end, and then I put some flowers in here. And so once I tear out the spinach, this is just going to be a flower garden. I didn't have anything else that I wanted to plant in here, and so I thought it would be a good use of this space. Got some celosia, alyssum, chamomile. I'm hoping that's really pretty. This bed still needs to be weeded, added compost to, and planted to dry beans. I really hope that gets done this week. Then I have this raised bed, which does not have any irrigation set up to it, so it's really hard to keep things growing in here. So I've just planted flowers in it for now. Needed somewhere to go with them, so that's what's in there. I did skip over this pear tree. It blooms beautifully every spring and has never developed a pear on it, so not really sure what that tree's problem is. And then we put this pear tree in last year, so it's looking pretty good, except that it needed some trimming that didn't get done this spring. It must get done this coming winter. Here is just a flower garden that I've had almost since we moved in here, and the bindweed is starting to get this one. I've never had bindweed in this bed before, and this year it's everywhere. So we have the daylilies that are done. We have some Asian lilies. Oh, sorry. We have some daffodils, not daylilies, daffodils that are done. We have some Asian lilies. We have my rose that's always very beautiful every year. These self-seeded, these are bells of Ireland. We have yarrow. And then we have our echinacea, or purple coneflower. And then I threw some celosia in over there, and looks like a few marigolds as well. And then behind me is a strawberry bed that I've had for years, and it doesn't have any irrigation, so oftentimes it gets dried out because I just don't have the time to always drag out a sprinkler or a hose and water these. But they're blooming, so we're excited about them. Our cherry tree is still in the midst of flowering, but mostly done. This tree is a very faithful producer of cherries every year, but they are the sour cherries. We have been unsuccessful in growing sweet cherries here in Nebraska thus far. I think that I have mentioned that I have been very unsuccessful at growing grapes, and I know I should be able to grow grapes here in Nebraska. I have 3 grapes in this weedy area of the fence line, and last year we actually got some little tiny baby grapes off of them that tasted really good. Like really good. It made me even more determined than ever to grow grapes successfully. However, chickens, dog, I'm not really sure what, wind broke them all. You can see a piece of it still there on the fence. And so they're having to start from the ground again. Now they should have a good root system, but I don't know if you can see, it came back. This one's a little bit healthier, and then this one down here, I didn't even know if it was still there, but it is still there. So these need a little love and care, some more mulch, some weeds being pulled, and we'll try to get these going again. Okay, I'm doing pretty good in getting most of my stuff in the ground. But here in my cold frame, I have a few other plants that are hardened off and really need to go in the ground. So I have some chives and some backup tomatoes and peppers that probably won't go in the ground, but I wanted them just in case. Marigolds need to go. I've got a lot of them in the ground. I've got a few more. Got some broccoli and cabbage to replace what my chickens had eaten. And then I've got watermelon and some cantaloupe and cucumbers, and I planted most of them, and these are just the extras. Also in my my bags here, my grow bags, we have a volunteer onion, but then I put flowers in them because I struggle to keep them watered. And so I had herbs in them last year, but this year I've just put flowers in them. Okay, so we have moved over to our other property, and this is what we call the fruit orchard. However, all we were able to do was get the trees in the ground, get the guards around them to protect them from the rabbits, and water them a few times. So they need a lot of work. They need the weeds to be pushed back from them. They need to be mulched. I'd really like to get some sort of irrigation system set up because it just doesn't happen when I can't just turn it on and leave it, and I have to stand there and water it. And my kids do help with that. But I know that the irrigation system works so much better as far as watering things go. So almost all of our trees have come to life. So we have pear trees here. Our one failed pear tree at our other property is not stopping us from trying again. So we have, I believe, 6 pear trees that we have planted here. Our next row is peach trees. And this one was alive when it came, and it was way too cold. And so that one's not doing very well. However, the other ones are coming to life. So that's a good sign. And then we have apple trees. These are all apple trees in this row that we have planted this year. And then we have our apple trees that we planted last year. And if you remember, some of these got attacked by deer. So this one actually, it looks pretty good, but it is showing signs. I don't know if that's apple rust. I'm not really sure because I believe we only have one cedar tree over here. This was the one that was attacked really hard by the deer, and we knew it would be dead above a certain point. But if you notice, it is growing. So it's not a full loss. This is a Honeycrisp, one of my favorites. And so we will, after this year, be able to cut off all this dead part and train a new leader to grow. My husband's really excited about the Arkansas Black, and so this one also got attacked by the deer, and you can see that middle part there is dead, but everything below that point was just fine. So we didn't lose this tree. That's good. And then we've got 2 more trees down there. Now this is our melon garden, and this is an experiment. I needed a big space for it, and I had all this row cover already. However, this area was a cattle lot for, I don't know, last 7 to 10 years probably. I don't like the movement in this weed barrier right now with the wind. I'm gonna have to drag some more sandbags over here because it would be devastating if they decided to blow off. But anyways, because it was a cattle lot, there's a lot of nutrition in the soil, but too much probably, and it might burn the plants. So I had to go somewhere. This is just an attempt, and yesterday I transplanted all my melon starts as well as cucumber starts, and they are all here now, and they actually look pretty good. I think they could use a drink. I will get irrigation set up here, but in the meantime I'm going to be just hand watering them. And I think I'm going to go grab a few sandbags, because if it blows where mine are planted, that's not going to be good. So I added a few more sandbags, and then I gave each of the plants a little drink. It's hot and it's sunny and it's pretty dry. I thought I'd show you some up close. So this is a Market More cucumber, and it doesn't look too bad. And when I transplanted it, I believe it's already starting to form a bud on there. So I don't know how it will do after its transplant, but most of them looked really healthy when I put them in the ground. So hopefully they will really take off here soon. Okay, also yesterday I transplanted out some squash that I had started in the house, and so the same varieties as we've had in other places. We've got the crookneck, the desi squash, the patty pan, and just some regular zucchini, and they look really happy here. The irrigation really helps. You can tell I ran it all night long and I just shut it off, so nice and wet. The lima beans in this row had not been watered yet, so this was their first watering that they had gotten, so no germination, which I expected they wouldn't germinate without water. Then we have our russet potatoes here, and they look very happy. Honestly, not too many weeds in that row, and I haven't noticed any potato bugs yet, so that's good. Now under these row covers, I have my tomatoes and my peppers, and I did uncover one row so we could get a closer look. Also, there's some basil, cilantro, and parsley and holy basil under there, mixed in with some of them. So I'll take you down to the one that I uncovered. And one thing about row covers is you can't weed when they're over them, and so the weeds are out of control here, but we will get caught up on these. We have to, because otherwise they'll get too big. But yeah, so I haven't seen much of these tomatoes because I've left them covered for the most part, so I'm really happy to see how well they are doing. They're thriving. I haven't had tomatoes look this healthy in quite some time. So you'll notice that some of them down this row are almost as tall as the hoops, so it won't be long before we cannot keep this row cover on anymore. But it's done its job of keeping them warm on the cold nights and also protecting them from the wind and the few little hailstorms we've gotten here and there. If you notice amongst the weeds, this one has cilantro thrown in, and those are plants that I started from seed inside and set out. But these two tomatillo plants looked very healthy when I put them in the ground, and you can see one has a bloom on it already. Now this is my first year growing tomatillos, and so I am completely inexperienced. My husband says he likes salsa verde, so I thought it would be a fun thing to try. So I really only have these 2 plants, but that's a good amount, I think, to experiment on. Got some very healthy weeds here, a marigold in there, and then down here at the end are some of my peppers that didn't fit in the other rows of peppers. So I'm looking for my tag on them. These are my poblano peppers. They'll be made into chili powder. So I really hope they get going strong. So yeah, definitely need to get in here and pull some weeds, especially now that it's nice and watered. They come out of this pretty easily. And it'll clean right up as long as I don't let them get any bigger. Also in this block of beds is a row of just zucchini. If you can't tell, we like our zucchini. We like our squash. I probably have way too much of it. Now we're gonna move on and talk about this block of beds. Okay, first up in this bed is another row of potatoes. These are the red New Orleans, and they are what we eat as new potatoes. So they'll be the first that come out of the ground, and hopefully we'll be eating them about midsummer, maybe end of June. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly when it was last year. Next to them we have our onions, and these are all ones I started from seed, and I'm pretty happy with how they're doing. However, I had carrots in this row last year, and even though carrots are biannual and they shouldn't go to seed the first year they're planted, our carrots got tricked by some crazy spring weather with warm days and cold days, and so we had quite a few of them go to seed. And so as you can see, my most prominent weed in this onion row is carrots. And I love carrots, but I don't think they're gonna help the onions grow big and strong. So most of them are gonna have to go. I actually might leave some of them that are growing on the outside in the row because they're ahead of the carrots that I planted. And so I'd really like to have some carrots earlier if I can. Our next row has a marigold here at the end, and then we have radishes. And I'm still not very good at growing radishes, even though they're a quick turnaround crop. Last year I had them bolt and not make bulbs, and we're trying again. Then I have some broccoli and cauliflower, and honestly I don't know which and which. The chickens got everything else in this row. These survived because I had this netting over them, and so some of them are looking really healthy. It looks like we've got some more carrot weeds in there. Kind of fun. I can see through this. It also is hopefully going to keep those cabbage moths off of them so we don't have worms in our broccoli, because that's one of the downsides to organic growing, is it's hard to grow broccoli without worms in it, and who wants broccoli with worms in it. And then down at this end we have some beets here as well, and you can see a couple of my, I'm not sure which broccoli, probably survived as well, even though the chickens ate it off. And it did pretty well. The next door row is our garlic that we planted last fall, and it is very happy looking. I haven't seen any garlic scapes yet, but from my understanding, this is my first year of growing garlic that was planted in the fall. My spring planted garlic did not do well, but it should be a month after the scapes come up that the garlic should be ready to pull. So we will be very excited about that because the plants look incredibly happy. This is probably one of my worst looking rows in the garden so far. Down at this end we have marigold and we have dill planted. And then I believe I planted Brussels sprouts and cabbage in here. Yes, that's what I planted. And the chickens got it. So there's a few left over, but ultimately I'm going to plant my sweet potatoes in this row because it was a bust for those. But you can see I have a volunteer, I believe it's a Cosmos, I think is what I had. I had flowers in here last year. And I have a lot of volunteer radishes because they went to seed last year. That might even be a radish. I want to pull it, but I'm going to wait. Yeah, I believe a lot of these are volunteer radishes. Maybe instead of planting radishes, I should just let them grow. And then if I look down here, oh good, we have a tag. These are Brussels sprouts. So we have 3 healthy Brussels sprouts at the time being. Will that stay? I don't know. Then we have these weeds, but I'm betting they're zinnias because I had zinnias in this row. And this is too thick and doesn't look like anything else I know. So I think I have a whole gob of wild zinnias, which unfortunately I'm going to have to pull most of those out. Oh, and then red cabbage. I see 1 red cabbage for sure, but it doesn't look very healthy. So I don't know if that will make anything And then it looks like I have one more cabbage down here. It's green cabbage. So a couple of them survived. And then I believe I have more beets. Is that what this is? Yeah, I planted more beets down here. So just threw beets in and radishes in wherever they would fit. Okay, then we have another row of potatoes. This would be our Yukon Gold potatoes. And they are also really taking off and just about smothering out the weeds. I have weeded it once, and I keep checking for potato bugs because we had a problem with those last year. So far, even though I've seen a few leaves look like they're nibbled, I haven't found any potato bugs or potato bug larvae, but I bet it's coming. This next row makes me pretty happy. We have spinach here at the end, and something really likes to eat it. Besides for me, I really like to eat it too. I have it for breakfast quite often with some scrambled eggs. Then we have our lettuce, which is what I'm selling at my stand right now. So this is the only row in my garden that's currently making me any money. And it's a lot of work to pick and wash and bag the lettuce. And I honestly don't know how long it will grow before it bolts. It's a warm day today. I have the irrigation on, cool water to help cool the roots down. But as you can see, I've been picking and selling every day, and I took a lot to the farmer's market, my first ever farmer's market, and I still have lots left over. This salad bowl lettuce, it has the lobed leaf on it. There's just so much of it here, and it doesn't matter how much I pick, you can't even tell that I've picked it. Then we have Swiss chard, which I discovered there are people at the farmer's market that like Swiss chard, and this is the rainbow Swiss chard, so it's really pretty. I eat it in salads. Then we have our kale, and kale is just so pretty, especially this red leafed kale, but we only have one plant of that. I threw marigolds in to try to deter the bugs. Then we have our curly leaf kale. Looks like a dandelion snuck in there. And then we have our dinosaur kale down here at the end. So this row is looking great still. Next up in this row, we have shallots at the beginning, which I am growing specifically for a neighbor who requested them. I've never grown them before, but so far they seem to grow just like onions do, which is great. And then past them, I do have onions that didn't fit in the first row. And then we go down here further, and we have some radishes that I believe are ready to pull. Especially those. I transplanted those, and I can see bulbs on them already, so there's not a lot of them, but probably enough to at least put at the stand. I have one particular customer that asked about radishes, so hopefully he can get them on his way to work if he's interested in them. Then we have our strawberries, and these were our Albion strawberries that we planted last year in the spring, and they did so well. So if you bought any strawberries from my stand, it was from these last year, and they were so big and so healthy. The plants looked amazing, and a lot of them died. You can notice there's a lot of holes in them, in the weed barrier gaps where the strawberries should be. And then the ones that did make it, a lot of them are really yellow. They are blooming, so they are going to bear some fruit, but I don't know the size or the condition of what it will be. But it's getting windy again. We went with plan B. We did a backup, and I ordered some more day neutral, which are what the Albions are, and we filled in the holes with new plants. So they're behind, but hopefully we will still have strawberries later in the summer, probably end of June, and then they produced all the way until the frost in October last year. So we're hopeful that by replacing all the missing spots, we'll still have quite a few strawberries, and we're going to get to more of the strawberries here in just a minute. Next up is my row of green beans, and I planted two different varieties, and different varieties than I usually do. I have Contender and Provider bush beans, and so far I don't think I've ever had plants come up as healthy looking as these have. Normally I end up with them getting eaten off, maybe even eaten out of the soil. So I had a really good germination on these, and I'm hopeful for a good crop of green beans this year. And then the last row in this garden has my carrots, and then there's some strawberries down at the end. So I did start my carrots at 2 different times. I started these really early and they did pretty good. However, I think my chickens got into them at one point, and so we are missing some in places. They came up really well and then we lost some. And then I have my second starting of carrots and there's not very many gaps there, so that's good. And then I guess technically there is a row here that doesn't have irrigation yet. And I have my rhubarb on both ends that I planted, and then we have grapes. And our grapes that we started last year are not showing signs of life. Why can I not grow grapes? I don't know. They have been given all that they need. They get watered, plus they get water runoff from the row next to them. I really don't know. And then, okay, so this is one we planted last year and it is growing. So that's good at least. And these I believe are seedless. But then I decided, since I struggle so much, I was gonna go with just the standard grape that's easiest to grow, and that is Concord. And so I planted 3 Concord grapes, and so far they are growing. At least 2 of them are growing. I don't think the 3rd one is growing. So my quest to grow grapes is continuing. Yeah, that one is not growing. Okay, and now the unfortunate discussion we have to have about our strawberries. So we planted 3,000 strawberries here in the fall. We planted them bare root. We knew there was a risk involved, but we know that other growers do it and do it successfully. However, we planted bare root instead of plugs, so that was one difference that we did. We also planted them straight into compost, and so they should have lots of food. They have weed barrier, so they aren't having weed pressure. They have irrigation. We kept them watered. We had snow cover. We had row cover over them. We thought we did everything right. And this year when we uncovered them, we're missing a lot of strawberries that just died. Now we did have a coon get in here and dig up some. We had rabbits nibble off a bunch after we planted them, and they grew. Once we planted them, they bloomed immediately. We picked off the blooms, we picked off the runners. So why didn't they make it? I don't know. And then a lot of them that did make it came back yellow. And that's a sign of nutrient deficiency, but we knew the nutrients were there. And you can still see a few that are struggling with being yellow. For the most part, they've come out of being yellow. The ones that are there look really healthy. They look strong. They're sending out runners. You see that one's runner right there. The problem with sending out runners is they didn't bloom. So these are June-bearing plants, and they should have bloomed. They should be in full bloom, putting on berries right now, and they're not. So what happened? We really don't know. We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to think it through, but we're learning on our own. Then we have the few outliers. So this one did bloom, and it didn't put on a lot of blooms, but there's its berry. It's even starting to turn white. We wish more of our plants looked like this. Instead, I think we only have 3 that put on any blooms and berries at all. There's a couple more over here on this side. So what went wrong? I don't know, but we are not going to have our 3,000 strawberry plants that we had really hoped for and planned for. But we did come up with a backup plan, because we want strawberries. We want to provide them at our stand and at the farmer's market, and we want lots to eat and to freeze and to dehydrate. So we ordered more day neutrals, and some of them we'd ordered in the fall, and we planted those. I'll take you to those real quick. Okay, so these are the Albions. We knew we had this empty row here that we didn't have enough to fill out last fall. So we went ahead and ordered the Albions and planted them a few weeks ago. And they've established really well, and they're blooming. I haven't pulled blooms off of them because they looked already pretty well established, and we want berries. And so we have those. There's 250 of those that were planted several weeks ago. And then when I realized my other berries were not going to bloom, I went ahead and ordered 750 more day neutrals, 500 Albion, and 250 Seascape. And so those are filling in holes amongst the June bearing. The rows that were missing the most plants is where we put those. And those we just finished planting yesterday. So they're behind but they should bear throughout the whole season. So hopefully come July, we should have more berries from them. So we're learning strawberry farmers, and we're definitely experiencing some failures and some setbacks, but we're pressing on and still trying to get a crop of berries. I hesitate to show this because it is getting neglected. It's on my to-do list, just keeps not getting priority. But this is my asparagus patch that I started last year, and I have pulled some weeds, and you can see the asparagus looks very healthy and growing. But what I need to do is I need to get these weeds chopped down. I need to put cardboard down, and I need to put mulch on top of it. And mulching is my least favorite job, very time consuming, very dirty, but I really need to get it done here, and I need to get it done on my fruit trees. But we do have asparagus growing despite the weed pressure. One last little bit that I neglected to show you at the end of our lettuce row here is some cilantro that I started from seed. Cilantro I find bolts really quickly, but we need it for our pico de gallo that we love so much in the summer. So I'm going to continue to seed cilantro here and there where I have room. I have some started inside that's more advanced. I have this stuff here, and then I will keep starting it. So hopefully we have cilantro throughout the whole season, especially the tomato season. So I think I've showed you just about everything. There might be stuff here and there that I forgot, but thanks so much for coming along with me on my garden tour. I'm curious what comments you have, what advice you have for me, especially regarding our strawberries. If you know much about growing strawberries here in Nebraska, we really want to be successful at that, so any advice would be appreciated. I am grateful to all of you that watch my channel and are helping me keep it going. So I appreciate you sharing and liking the videos so that more people can see them and join in and support our learning and our growing here together. And I want to be open with my failures so that you guys can help me and you can learn from our mistakes and enjoy seeing the stuff growing. I think it's so much fun. So thanks for watching. Bye.